Hello friends, welcome back to this online lecture series on Western political thought. Today we'll be discussing Machiavelli on the Prince, or Machiavelli's thought on statecraft. To go back to his life, Machiavelli was born in 1469 at Florence, Italy, as the third child and first son of Bernardo and Bartolomeo. He was educated in grammar, rhetoric, and Latin, and joined public service of Florentine in 1498 at the age of 29 and worked for 14 years till 1512. He passed away in 1527 at his farmhouse outside Florence. Machiavelli had written more than 20 books during his lifetime, out of which the two most important political treatises were The Prince and Discourses. The Prince was written in 1513 but published 5 years after his death in 1532. Similarly, the Discourses was written in 1517 and published in 1532. Whereas the Prince focused on strong monarchy, the Discourses focused on strong republic. However, both the books equally talks about why Machiavelli is known for till today. For example, his indifference on the use of immoral means for political purpose, his belief in that government depends largely on force and craft, or his ideas on separation of ethics from politics. While writing his book, Machiavelli used the title De Principatibus, or of principalities, and distributed few copies of his manuscript to his friends and associates, but it was published only after his death with the title Il Principe, or the Prince. Machiavelli's book is the product of the prevailing conditions of his time in Italy. It is not an academic treatise or value-oriented political philosophy, but it is in real sense realpolitik, or a political treatise based on practical politics. The Prince deals with the machinery of the government, which successful ruler could make use of it. It is a direct how-to-use manual for rulers who aim to either establish a new state or control an existing one. The book tells us about how to acquire power, how to create a state, and how to maintain it. In fact, in the intellectual history of the world, there are only few, or there are more or less no other intellectual who are as notorious and ambitious as Niccolo Machiavelli. Whereas his treatise, The Prince, made his name synonymous with autocratic ruthlessness, the Discourses shows a radically different outlook. In the latter book, Machiavelli proposed a system of government that would uphold civic freedom and security by instilling the virtues of active citizenship to the people. Like the Prince, the Discourses admits of various interpretations. This interpretation focused mainly on his pro-republican remarks. Throughout his two books, Machiavelli sees politics as defined by the difference between the ancient and the moderns. To him, the ancients are strong and the moderns are weak, because during ancient time they have strong leader and they have disciplined army and obedient citizens. Whereas in the modern period, the states were weak because of the teaching of Christianity. He blamed the church to be the main reason for Italy's disunity, because the church preached suffering and made the war effeminate. For his writings and political rhetoric, the Catholic Church censored Machiavelli for his criticism of Christianity, particularly in The Prince. Machiavelli is sometimes believed to have a theory of absolutism, but at the same time, he also shows genuine enthusiasm for popular government. He recommended despotism simply because he thought that a republican government wouldn't be able to unite Italy and make a strong state. So in order to make his country a strong state, Machiavelli needed a strong despot or an absolute government. As Sabine remarks, his judgment was swayed by two admirations, one for the resourceful despot and the other for the free self-governing people. Now let's come to the prince. The prince as the ruler, who is more or less synonymous with the state. In the discourses, Machiavelli wrote that it is not the well-being of the individual that makes cities great, but the well-being of the community. Because the state is the highest form of human association. Machiavelli is interested in not only establishing a strong state, but also extending the territory of the state. For him, either a state must expand or perish. The whole argument of the book, that is the Prince, is based on two premises borrowed mainly from Aristotle. One, the state is the highest form of human association, and each individual can attain his base only through the state. The second is, material self is the most potent motive force in individual and public action. In other words, material interest or material gain is the most important factor that influences an individual's life. During his time, Machiavelli viewed Italy as leaderless, lawless, crushed, despoiled, torn, and overrun. And his view on his own country has been reflected in his book, particularly The Prince. In order to bring unity and integrity, Machiavelli calls for a new prince who will introduce order that would bring unity and stability. And this new prince should not control Italy, but also extend his princely powers even beyond the country. Now, let's come to the most important part of our today's lecture. That is advice to the prince. The first one is, a prince should be a combination of lion and fox. Lion for his strength and fox for his cunningness, because lion, though he is very strong, is not able to discover the snares or the trap, and fox, though very cunning, he is terrified the wolf. So a prince need to be a lion to terrify the wolf, and need to be a fox to discover snails. And second point, a prince should not care about his emotions. He should not be disturbed by human emotions. However, he should be able to take advantage of the emotions of other people. And third, a prince should be an opportunist. He should take advantage of any situation arising within and outside the country. A prince can be fair and love at the same time. But if one has to choose between fear and love, to be fair is better than love, because people followed or obeyed as long as they get benefit, in case if they love the ruler. But if they are scared of the ruler, they will follow him even if they don't get any material benefit. The prince should avoid being considered fickle, frivolous, effeminate, mean-spirited and irresolute, but should endeavor to show greatness, courage, gravity, and fortitude. Integrity versus cunningness. It is equally important, but if need be, the prince should be cunning. There has to be judicious use of law and physical force. Wherever necessary, the law should be used, and wherever needed, physical force should be used. Cruelty versus mercy. The prince should be both cruel and merciful. However, if he is too merciful, it can lead to his own disadvantage. So he should not be too merciful towards his subjects, and he should be cruel if the end result would be for the welfare of the state. Generosity versus parsimony. If the prince is too generous, it can affect not only his image later on, but also cause greed for more. To be too generous is also not economical. Therefore, a wise prince should be willing to be more reputed and measured than be hated for trying to be too generous. Love for the state. The prince should be a patriot or a nationalist who would sacrifice everything, including his life, for the cause of the state. Keeping his word. It is good for the prince to keep his word or not to tell lie, but wherever necessary, the prince should not mind telling lie. Property and women of the subjects. The prince should never touch the property and women of his subjects. A prince might even execute a conspirator, but should not confiscate his property, because Machiavelli says that a person may forgive the murder of even his father, but not the one who confiscate his property. And here, property of a man includes his wife. On neighbors. To Machiavelli, preservation of state territorial integrity is utmost important. But at the same time, he should also always focus on what is happening in his neighboring states. In case a war is imminent, a clever prince will attack the enemy before the latter attack him. Military power. Military power is maintained not only to establish a strong state, but also to maintain it. So, a successful ruler or a successful prince should maintain a strong military power. Choosing sides. In case two neighboring states are at war, the prince should always choose one of them instead of remaining neutral, because this will help him in the long run, whether his ally win the war or even lose the war. Justice versus injustice. A prince should always maintain justice, but if needed, he should not mind doing injustice as long as it serves the purpose of the state. Avoiding flattery. A prince should try to avoid flattery, because if he keep on appreciating himself, self-appreciation or excessive self-praise can affect his reputation. For this, he should have a select group of counselors or advisors who would advise him, and accordingly, he should take the final or ultimate decision. A prince should also act as patron of art, commerce, and agriculture for the welfare of his subjects. Double standard of conduct. In fact, states are not to be judged by individual ethics. The individual and the state, or the people in power, have different ethics. Whereas the individual cannot tell lie, or cannot commit crime, or cannot murder, the state can do all these things as long as it serves the purpose of the state. The state is a non-ethical entity in short. creator of law as also of morality. The prince or the ruler is the creator of both law and morality. So the law and the morality that he created are not bound upon him. He is above or outside the law and morality he so created. Citizen soldiery versus mercenary. Machiavelli believed that the prince should not depend on mercenary because these mercenaries will work as long as they get enough pay. But in case the rival or the enemy pay them more, they might even shift their allegiance. So it is not good to depend on mercenary. For this, Machiavelli preferred citizens soldiery. Selection of nobles and servants. A wise prince or a clever prince should be very good in selecting his nobles and servants whom he can trust. If he don't have the quality to select the right group of nobles or servants, that prince will not be able to rule for long. So he should be able to select good nobles and servants who are loyal to him. Thank you. Thank you so much. See you in the next lecture again.